Long before we were obsessed with comic book heroes wearing capes and flying around, the ancient world had its own original and, frankly, terrifyingly powerful superheroes, the gods of Mount Olympus. But these weren't just fun characters designed to entertain people on a weekend. These were deeply jealous, petty, and immensely powerful entities that were believed to control absolutely everything in the universe, from the very first sparks of new love all the way to the absolute finality of death. And here is where the stakes get incredibly high. When we watch superhero movies today, we all know it's just fictional entertainment, right? But for the ancient Greeks, this was their absolute reality. We're talking about thousands of years where real people built massive empires, went to brutal wars, and died, fully believing that these intensely jealous and petty beings were watching them. It was a completely different way of experiencing reality. So, let's go back and look at the cosmic origins of all this. The whole Olympian origin story actually kicks off in a completely unimaginable place: chaos. Literally just an absolute primordial void where nothing existed. From that void emerged Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, and together they spawned the Titans. These were giant, godlike beings who became the very first rulers of the cosmos. Now, as you might guess, their reign eventually paved the way for the Olympians, but spoiler alert, that transition of power was anything but peaceful. To give you an idea of the sheer absurdity of how the Titans tried to hold on to that power, we have to talk about Cronus. He gets this terrifying prophecy warning him that one of his very own kids is going to eventually overthrow him. So how does he try to cheat fate? Well, he does what he apparently thinks is the only logical thing. The second his kids are born, he just swallows them whole to prevent a coup. I know, right? Yes, this is Greek mythology in a nutshell. Wild, dark, and full of totally bizarre twists. Thankfully for the future of the cosmos, Cronus's wife, Rhea, finally hits her breaking point. She famously tricks him by wrapping a large rock in a baby blanket. And Cronus? He just swallows the rock whole, completely oblivious, which lets Rhea save her baby boy, Zeus. Zeus grows up in hiding, comes back, and literally forces his dad to regurgitate all of his swallowed brothers and sisters. Just an incredible family dynamic. All right, let's move on to the main event and actually meet the Olympians. So at the very peak of Mount Olympus, you've got Zeus taking the top spot as king of the gods, throwing lightning and handing out justice. Then there's his brother Poseidon, commanding the seas. Poseidon had a temper so incredibly violent and unpredictable that ancient sailors literally prayed for their lives before every single journey. And then, of course, there's Hades. He ruled the underworld. But, and this is a crucial distinction from modern pop culture, the underworld wasn't viewed as this fiery, evil punishment. It was quite simply just the place where the dead had to go, the end of the line. To really grasp how seriously they took this whole system, just look at the underworld. The ancient Greeks fully believed that swearing an oath on the river Styx, literally the river of the dead, was the absolute ultimate unbreakable guarantee. We're talking way more binding than any legal contract or physical document could ever be. If you invoked the Styx, you were quite literally putting your eternal soul on the line. There was no backing out of that one. But honestly, what keeps us so endlessly fascinated by these gods thousands of years later is just how deeply human their behavior was. I mean, these are supreme divine beings, right? Yet Zeus is constantly cheating on his wife Hera, and Hera, she definitely doesn't take the high road. She takes brutal, targeted revenge on his lovers and even their innocent kids. Then you've got Apollo, who gets rejected and, out of pure spite, curses Cassandra so that no one will ever believe her prophecies. They were all powerful, sure, but man, were they incredibly flawed and petty. Let's dive into some famous mythological case studies to see how this all played out. Take the deeply tragic irony of Achilles. As a baby, his mother wants to make him totally invincible, so she dips him into the sacred river Styx. But to keep from dropping him into the rushing water, she has to hold him securely by his ankle, meaning that one specific spot on his body never touches the magical water. Ultimately, this completely invincible, absolute legend of a warrior gets taken out by a single, perfectly aimed arrow to his unprotected heel. His mother's tight grip quite literally created a synonym for a fatal weakness that has lasted for 3,000 years. And then there's Medusa, Now, she actually wasn't the pure one-dimensional villain you've probably been led to believe. Originally, she was a beautiful priestess serving in Athena's temple. But after the sea god Poseidon brutally assaults her right there in the temple, Athena directs her fury not at Poseidon, mind you, but at Medusa, cursing her into a snake-haired monster whose gaze turns men to solid stone. And just to add an extra layer of total mythological absurdity to the whole thing, when she is eventually beheaded by Perseus, the famous winged horse Pegasus miraculously spawns right out of her blood. You really can't make this stuff up. Next up, we have the incredible story of the Titan Prometheus. He felt a lot of sympathy for humanity, so he basically pulls off a cosmic heist, steals fire from the gods, and hands it over to us. Zeus's punishment for this act of defiance? Exceptionally brutal. He chains Prometheus to a rock where a giant eagle swoops down and eats his liver. And because Prometheus is immortal, the liver just regenerates overnight, only to be eaten again the very next day, literally for eternity. A lot of historians actually viewed this dark myth as the ultimate enduring symbol of human progress, violently clashing with rigid divine authority. Now, looking at all these wild, supernatural stories, you might be asking yourself right now, how did entire, highly advanced empires actually buy into this? I mean, how did brilliant philosophers and military tacticians just accept tales of regenerating livers and snake-haired women? Well, the thing you have to realize is that to them, these weren't just imaginative campfire stories. These tales were their absolute science. For the ancient Greeks, every unexplained natural event had a direct, unquestionable divine cause. You wonder why the sun rises every single morning without fail? It's because the god Apollo is physically up there driving his glowing chariot right across the sky. Why do the seasons change, and why does winter even happen? Because the harvest goddess Demeter is drowning in grief over her daughter returning to the underworld, and her sheer sorrow literally causes the crops to die. They use these gods as their literal science to make sense of the physical world around them. And they relied on these divine explanations to make massive, real-world decisions. Take the Oracle of Delphi, which the source material brilliantly dubs the CNN of the ancient world. The oracle claimed to speak the direct prophecies of Apollo. And listen, this wasn't some fringe cult. It was an incredibly powerful central institution. We're talking actual kings, generals, and emperors dropping everything, traveling thousands of arduous miles, just to sit before the oracle and ask her questions before making major wartime or political decisions. Which brings us to how the gods live on today. Because the legacy of Mount Olympus is permanently stamped onto our modern society, literally hidden in plain sight. I mean, think about it. Mercury is a planet and a famous car brand. Venus is the brightest planet in our sky and, obviously, the goddess of love. We're constantly using phrases like finding an Achilles heel or opening Pandora's box, having the Midas touch, or putting in a Herculean effort. We literally speak the language of Greek mythology every single day without even realizing we are doing it. So we've clearly seen how the Greeks fundamentally shaped the world we live in today, leaving this undeniable mark on our culture, our language, and our imagination. But it leaves us wondering, if the Greeks left behind such an incredible lasting legacy, what kind of secrets are hidden in civilizations far, far older than Olympus? I mean, are we ready to go even deeper and uncover the Anunnaki, a mystery that continues to keep modern scientists and researchers in an absolute frenzy? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack in our next explainer.